conversation with you. If it makes you feel any better, I could change to like a consent position or something. If that's what you'd prefer.
No, I don't, no, I wanted to. I want no, no, no. I'm not looking to debate someone who's a devil's advocate. I'm looking. I'm trying. I mean, you can look. You can talk about whatever you want. I'm just like my answer is just that if your view leads to this,
well,
then
look,
if this is what your view leads to, I don't see the point in continuing the conversation because it's just there's. I'm just gonna reject it on the grounds of moral abhorrence to me. I would never be comfortable adopting a view like that.
So then that's why I'm asking you, because like I think we would probably have a much better conversation if you want me just to take the idea that like it's a consent value or something like that, because I think we could have a very good conversation on that, and I think I could challenge you on that end
look,
too.
If you could, that's totally. If you want to present a different view, that's fine.
All right, I'll change my view for this conversation then. All right, okay, let me take the position that I value. What did I say? Let me check my notes so I know I have the right things in place to say this. I probably have something here for it. Let's take the position that I value the mother's right to consent. I'll take that.
Okay, but not the fetus's right to consent.
Well, here's the thing with like consent rights. I think like, for example, let me use an easy analogy here. All right, so if a woman's getting raped by a man, I think both of them have the ability to consent, but that doesn't mean the man's right supersedes to the point where they can push themselves on the woman and control the woman's body. So I don't like care for that.
Okay, I don't understand the relevance.
Because well, it is relevant because the fetus is forced upon the woman's body. It's in the woman's body, even if she.
Oh, in the case of rape, I agree. Yeah, in the case of rape, I agree with that.
But like,
I don't have a problem with abortion in cases of rape.
No. I even think outside of it. For example, I believe do you believe a man has the ability? Do you think a woman has the ability to like revoke consent mid-sex?
Oh. Wait. No, of course I do. My problem with abortion has nothing to do with consent.
Well, I think because you're pro-sentence, I believe even if it's sentient, I believe the woman has every right to revoke consent from the fetus mid-pregnancy.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So let me ask you this. Let's say like there was a case where you're getting into a drunk driving accident, right? And you were negligent. You knew that if you get into a drunk driving accident that you could hit someone. And you wake up and they're in a state of dependence on you where they're hooked up to you, right?
Yep.
And let's say the only way to remove that dependency is to take a knife and chop them up. They're going to be dependent on you for 9 months. Okay? In that time, like there's miniaturized, you can walk around and stuff, you can do your job. They're going to slowly grow, and at the 9-month period, they'll go about their life.
Are you saying chopping them off's the only way to do this? Because that seems disanalogous if it is.
Well, it's analogous of 10 plus weeks.
Are you saying the only way to exert a fetus is to chop them up?
Yeah, at 10 plus weeks.
I can't just chop up my stomach and take it out. I can't just like rip
myself
out.
You chop the. Well, no, abortions are.
I'm not talking general practice here. I'm talking like general practice within the US or anything. I'm talking like, is there a way?
It's general practice, basically universally.
But that wouldn't be the only way to take out a fetus, would it?
With current technology, sure.
I can't like if let's just say if a woman's pregnant. Are you saying like she couldn't cut open herself and take out the fetus in the stomach or something? Is there no way to do this?
No. I mean, there is a way. I'm sure there is a way of doing it. But in order to make it analogous, I'm just making it analogous to what actually happens in the majority of abortions.
Yeah, but I don't like. I'm not like fine with like the majority. I want to talk about the general. Like I'm not here to talk about the majority here.
Wait a minute. If you can't defend them, like, if you want to say the majority of abortions, you can't defend, but you're willing to defend the minority of abortions where they're not chopped up, that's fine. But if you're not going to do that, if you're not going to do that, then I am going to push you on the cases where they're chopped up.
Actually, you know what? Actually, I do have a response to this. So your whole thing here is responsibility, right? The responsibility for oneself.
I think there is a responsibility, yeah.
But see, I have a problem with this whole pushing upon responsibility factors, because it seems like a slippery slope to me. Can I explain why quickly?
Wait, you realize a slippery slope is a logical fallacy, right?
No, I'm not saying within the fallacy sense. I'm just saying it can lead to ridiculous some conclusions that would be ridiculous.
What conclusion is entailed?
Okay, so let's just say if we hold responsibility factors, if a woman walks into a bar and she acknowledges the responsibility, she could be date raped. Is she therefore responsible if she gets date raped?
No, I don't see how that's entailed.
Well, so they're both engaging in an action.
Again, I have specific criteria for when there's responsibility obtains.
What criteria is missing?
Okay. There's a number of criteria. So one is that there's no voluntary partaking in making the individual dependent on you. That would definitely not happen by definition in a rape case.
That wasn't what I meant. What I meant was that she did knowingly engage in the action, acknowledging there's a responsibility of a case that she may not want, and she did knowingly still act in the action. But she's not responsible in this instance. So why is she responsible in the other instance?
Yeah, because this doesn't meet the criteria for obtaining the responsibility objection on my view.
So your responsibility intention always has to do with another life being made.
Being made? I don't know if it has to do with another life being made.
Well, created.
So I can let me look up the criteria I have listed.
The symmetry breaker.
I'm sorry, what?
Is it
No, that's the symmetry, not the symmetry breaker. It's the overdetermination criteria for the responsibility objection.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 1 second. One moment. Okay. One second.
Oh, we're popular.
1 second. Okay. So number one, let me see if I can.
You mind posting it so I can read them all at once, just so I have a better idea.
I'm sorry, what?
You mind just posting them a text of it so I can read it?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna do.
Where would you post it? So I know where to look.
Yep. Okay, so here is an overdetermination criteria of when a responsibility obtains in the situation. So number one, A's action. I should really say voluntary action. A's voluntary action. The initial statement is voluntary. Dependency of organization, probability, and voluntary action. And S and B, and then really I should say the is one moment. Not voluntary action is not Non-voluntary. The non-voluntary forced. Okay, I think this is a reasonable
Where are you posting it?
overdetermination. Yeah,
Excuse me, where are you posting it?
a general chat.
General? Okay, sorry. Where are they? Alright. That's 6 things. A's voluntary action caused an initial state of neediness for B. A's voluntary action forced B to be in a dependent state on A. The dependency is already instated. A knew that there is a non-negligible probability. What do you mean by 4? Can you explain in simple terms for me?
A knew there was a non-negligible probability that number 1 and number 2 would occur as a consequence of the action. Is that like?
So you basically means knowledge of the chance of it happening.
Yeah, like there's a non-negligible probability. I'll post this again because we have some.
Yeah, I found it. That's fine. I've got nothing on it.
Yeah, we have like some.
All right. Here's my problem with that. That's such a like a.
Wait. You haven't like. Well, before you get to like problems. I mean, well, if you think there's a problem, you can go ahead. Is it a logical problem or is it just something that?
Well,
you don't
I'm
like?
guessing you believe this in practicality, correct?
I'm sorry, what? No, this is not a practical criteria. It's a principled criteria.
So you wouldn't use this in practical cases.
Well, it depends. That depends on my epistemic knowledge. On my knowledge.
Okay. The burden is imposed on A by this.
We're gonna have to like. Let me just ban some of the people who are just like spamming the chat.
Okay, that's fine. But the burden imposed on A by this dependency is comparable in the magnitude of the burden associated with the pregnancy. Action is not interrupted by non-voluntary forced actions interposed between the action and dependency state. The voluntary action is not Wait, so you're saying you wouldn't apply this?
Oh, I may not be. It's like, again, it's an overdetermination criteria. Not all of them need to be there, and I may not know which ones need to be there or not. But I'm just saying, if all of them are there, in principle, then I wouldn't view it as. Then I would view that there's a responsibility condition that obtains.
My thing is that like, which part of these would you be like absolutely required to you, like?
That's the whole thing with an overdetermination. I may not know that any of them are absolutely required, nor do I need to.
It's comparable in magnitude to the burden associated with pregnancy. So is A the man and B is the woman? Or is A the woman? I'm just trying to understand.
A is the woman and B is the fetus.
Oh, B is the fetus. Okay, sorry. A voluntary action caused an initiated state of neediness for B. Okay, A's voluntary action forced B to be dependent on A. The dependency is already instated, and A knew that there was a non-negligible thing consequence of the action. The burden imposed on A by its dependency is comparable to the burden of magnitude of the pregnancy. The voluntary action is not. Okay, so there has to be like a result into which like one is putting like a state of neediness for 2. So there has to be a child in result, or something in result.
One is placing the other person in a state of the initial state of dependentness and initial state of neediness. Yeah.
So that's needed for us to talk about responsibility in this instance, in comparable instances.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's interesting. Okay, so my thing with this would basically just be like A's voluntary. Sorry, I'm just trying to read this to understand more and more. A's voluntary action forced B to be dependent on A. The dependency is already instated. So what do you mean? Like, where do you define like instantiated? Like, where do you define that as?
I don't think I need to have like a 100% precise definition, but I think like in the examples I give, there's enough shared knowledge where it's very clear. So, for example, if someone wakes up in a car crash and they're already hooked up to someone, then the dependency is already instantiated. Rather than they're not hooked up to someone, and the question is, do they start the hookup?
So right? So these responsibility factors lead us to the point where like the A's right to consent can just be thrown out the window.
Yeah, that basically, not that can it be thrown out the window. I mean, look, it's not that it doesn't make any moral difference, but it doesn't make a difference such that it will turn on their responsibility the responsibility condition wouldn't override the difference in consent.
Why? Why would this be the case?
That's my value. Yeah, that's my values.
So you don't have a justification.
Like, I mean, my justification is that at some point these are going to be morals. We're not going to have justifications, but
what?
Well, I don't think. Well, the best I can give is that if I don't apply these set of conditions as overdeterminations, then I think it would lead to abhorrent conclusions if I were to prioritize consent. And again, if I would prioritize consent, I'll just point out that I can ask the justification question over and over again with consent as well. Why should we value consent? Do you have a justification?
Why should we value consent? Why should we value consent? Because I think it's like a key choice to like how we choose things and our like rights to make any choices in life.
Well, why should it be? Why should it be? Do you have a justification for that?
I see what you're doing here. You want me to just keep substantiating everything. Okay.
Yeah.
I know what you mean here. Okay. So that's fine. Because like I think here's the difference between those two things are you value consent, correct?
Yeah, I do have some value of consent, sure.
Okay, so you were like, why would you like? It sounds really weird that you'd ask me to justify why I value consent if we both mutually value it. That's the big difference there.
No. The justification would. So I can ask the question: why should I value consent over the responsibility?
Over the responsibility.
Yeah.
Well, I'm guessing. Oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting argument. I'll give you that. Why should we value responsibility? Like, what by that logic, why should we like value responsibility at all?
Why should we? Well, okay. Well, now if you want to ask me why I should value responsibility at all, I can ask why we should value consent at all.
But you already agreed we both value consent, so there's no need for you to ask me.
But we already agree. But we already agree that you value. Wait.
No, I didn't.
Hold on. You don't. Wait. All I'm pointing out, even whether I agree with it or not, is tangential. Because I can just point, even if you want to say that I may not have a justification for valuing, I have as much. The point I'm trying to bring is that I have as much of a justification for valuing responsibility as I do for consent.
So what's your justification for valuing consent? Oh, well, we both agree on that. So then
my justification is just going to bottom out into it being something I value.
Okay. So like, here's my thing then. Like, are you saying that your value for like responsibility is like arbitrary?
Well, what do you mean by arbitrary?
Lacks reason.
Do you mean if by lacking reason do you mean like I can start with the axioms of logic and come to the conclusion of what values are? No, I don't think there's any value that has that property. I'm not sure if there's any value that has that property. Certainly, it wouldn't. Certainly, I don't think it consent would have that property.
Well, so that's weird. Okay, so you agree there are values that would hold this property, but
no, I don't know if there are values. I said I don't know if there are any values that hold that property.
But
what I am saying is that I highly doubt consent holds that property, and I highly doubt that responsibility holds that property, and I'm agnostic if there are any values that hold that property.
That's interesting. Okay, so the lack of justification on a base level. Okay, so then I'd just say in like rebuttal to this that like responsibility. I believe responsibilities can hold like different. Personally, I believe responsibilities hold different like values and be proportionate from different levels. So realistically, I believe like for example, when you steal some candy, I think you like it's the responsibility value for your actions is less than if you rape someone.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. Yeah, I agree with that.
So where would you put this on that spectrum?
So I would put it to be a huge responsibility. I think that you've taken a being and I think you've forced them to be in a state of dependence on you. I think you've especially in the cases where you knew this was going to happen or had a reasonable chance of happening if you did it.
Mm-hmm.
You voluntarily did it.
Mm-hmm.
You put the being in this state through no choice of their own. They did not have the ability to consent, and yet this being was placed on, in this situation. I think there's a huge responsibility there.
Do you understand what chaos theory is, or chaotic systems, like the weather?
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah. So basically,
If the idea is to just say that, like, there may be some kind of, like, like one molecule hits the other molecule. If you did that, well, then the condition that's not going to be there is that A knew that there was a non-negligible probability that 1 and 2 would occur as a consequence of his action.
I know there's a possibility that every time I do something that could cause a storm.
I didn't say possibility. I didn't say not. I said non-negligible.
Well, what do you define as probability?
I don't think I need to have a precise definition of probability. So like I can there's going to be a gray area, right? There's going to be like, it could be like, if it could be 1% or something, that or somewhere around there. But it could, like, whether it's 1% or 0.5% or 0.05%. Like, none of that's ever going to come close to the chaos theory, where one molecule hits another molecule and hits another, and then all of a sudden, some quantum mechanic effects happen and someone's dependent on you like that.
I think here's the thing. I think like probability will refer to like more likely to be the case. Personally, I think it's like over 50%.
And certainly, no. I said non-negligible. I didn't say probable. I said there's a non-negligible probability if you look at the criteria.
That's why I asked you what you meant by non-negligible.
Right, but then I was giving you non-negligible. I was giving you some clarity on that. I was saying, like, okay, well, if it's around 1%, if it's around 0.5%.
Wait.
Right.
So you don't think 1% is insignificant?
I don't think it's non-negligible, no.
So wait, why wouldn't 1% be like insignificant?
Because that's enough for it to happen millions and millions of times. That happens all the time today.
If that's your criteria, that could be the same idea for something that it happened like 0.1%. The same it happened for 0.01%. We can't.
No, it isn't. That doesn't follow.
Why not?
Because that's not something that happens all the time today. The chaos theory thing. Like, if you have some probability that happens 0.000000 whatever, etc., 1% of the time, well, that's just not good. That's going to be outside of that gray area. It's going to be in the clear area where it's not going to be the case, where A knew there was a non-negligible probability that 1 and 2 would occur as a consequence of her action.
Let me check something right now. Alright. There's over like. There's many thousands of storms. I just googled it. There's many thousands of storms that happen a day. So like that's still a large range. I think you'd agree thousands of something is still a lot. It's actually.
Well, again, but regardless, I mean, again, like I'm giving you how I'm defining non-negligible probability. I'm giving you this gray distribution.
This seems like so like on the borders of like arbitrary to why like we consider like if there's like tens of millions of storms happen a year and all these storms will logically happen due to this, then I would say it's like ridiculous to assert that like that there's millions that happen with this and there's millions that happen with that. So like, what's the non-negligibility? Like, what's the lack of difference here? That's what I'm saying.
Well, I'm already giving you. I'm cutting to the chase. I'm already giving you what the probability range will be. So how I'm determining it. Well, how I'm staying. Sorry, not determining. How I'm defining it.
Well, can you actually there's no way you'd agree. There's no way to actually prove an exact amount of times a pregnancy happens via this 6 rules.
Wait. I don't think. I'm not sure about that.
Well, I
think actually maybe not to prove it, but I actually think the vast amount of pregnancies happen that follow these 6 criteria.
New would imply knowledge for 4, correct?
I'm sorry, what? Yeah. Knowledge is it would.
You'd agree there's a bunch of pregnancies that happen via like malfunctions of condoms, correct?
Yeah.
Ton of them. You'd also agree there's a high probability that a lot of people probably wouldn't know there's like a chance that condoms can actually fuck up, or they wouldn't have that thinking of them within their current mind.
No, I agree, but I think most people do.
Yeah, but that's something like asserting that it's just something unprovable. Like it's such a it's an.
No, I don't know if it's unprovable. I mean, I could look. It's not unprovable. We can look for data. But my intuition, again, so one thing I'll concede is that this is my intuition that the majority of pregnancies fall into these categories. But I don't think it's I don't think that's unreasonable. I don't think it's like one of those far out there things. I think the majority of people are fully aware that condoms can and do fail. I think it's represented in the media that this happens all the time. I think there's I think anyone who, I mean, you don't even have to be, the point is you don't even have to be educated on the topic all you have to do is watch movies to really see some.
So weird because I find that really fallacious. It's pretty much just an appeal to intuition.
It's not an argument. It's not an argument. I don't know why you're saying it's fallacious.
Do you think only arguments can be fallacious? And what do you define as an argument?
I don't know what you mean by fallacious then.
Huh? Fallacious just means based off mistaken belief.
Oh, based on mistaken belief. Okay, then we're using fallacious in a very different way.
I'm using it within its denotative definition.
Okay, I don't. Okay, well, look. I mean, if you want to say my belief is mistaken, then what belief am I mistaken about?
Well, you're saying that you're proportionating that. You're basically saying that your gut feeling or your intuition or your instincts tell you that this is the case, so therefore it is the case, which is my problem.
That's not what that's not. Can you point to a situation where I said that?
Well, you're using that as your justification. Your reasoning is your intuition.
No, can you point to a situation where I said it was justification?
It was entailed. That would be justification.
What's the entailment?
What's the entailment? You used it as reasoning within your argument. Reasoning is justification.
What argument did I provide?
You're providing an argument within your value system. What do you mean? You're providing an argument right now. Argument is just to come to the conclusion or proof of a premise. That's all an argument really is.
When did I do that?
What? Wait, why do you keep asking me this? This is really weird.
Because the point is that I just didn't do any of these things. Now you can say that you may have gotten the implication that I was, but I wasn't actually doing any of those things.
So you saying
I was granting that I didn't have an argument. I was granting that this was my intuition.
So,
but I was granting that I didn't have the justification. Justification I just take to be something that increases the probability of a proposition being true.
Are you saying you made no attempt to do anything for your premise or reaching your conclusion currently?
I didn't even provide you with a premise.
It's a red herring.
I didn't provide you with an argument. I didn't even do that.
I find this whole part irrelevant.
I was just giving you my position.
Yeah, but your position.
I wasn't even at the point of arguments. I was relaying what my position was.
Yeah.
And I was relaying what my intuitions are. That's all I was doing.
To reach a conclusion, correct?
Now what you did was you jumped to assume that what I was doing was giving you some sort of justification for things I wasn't actually justifying.
I think anything when you're talking in a debate, I think everything you would be doing would be an attempt to reach a conclusion.
Okay, you shouldn't assume that.
Well, I believe anything that's not to do with that would be irrelevant and a red herring.
Okay. Well, again, you shouldn't. That's not true. Because you can convey what your views are without trying to justify them. And there's totally nothing wrong with that.
Are you attempting to reach a conclusion in this discussion?
No, I'm not yet. Anyway, I'm attempting
the point of this
convey
discussion. The point is.
I'm attempting. You asked me to have a discussion. I'm attempting to convey right now. I'm just attempting to convey what my view is to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because before actually providing any sort of justification for my view, I would appreciate it if you understood what my view is. And that's all I was trying to do at this point in the conversation. I can add to you what my intuitions are and whatnot, but
okay. Sure. I'll stick to the. I'm willing to sit here and stick to the idea that this is intuition, unjustified, and you can keep going. I'll wait for you to keep.
I mean, but I mean, look, I don't think it's I don't think it's unreasonable because now that I did just a simple Google search, there are various studies. At least there's reports. I'm seeing reports on various studies where a substantial amount of people not only know that condoms can break, but have reported that they've experienced condoms breaking.
Wait, people that have abortions?
No, people in the general population.
Okay, so you're taking the general population. So why should I trust this study? If you don't mind me asking.
I mean, well, again, like you can have all sorts of skepticism about all sorts of studies.
But that,
I'd have to look in. I'd have to look in. Well, again, like it depends on what your epistemic standards are. Like you can have, but yeah, I mean, like we can go into the data if you'd like. We can like that's where you want what you want this to hit.
All I'm saying is that
but I don't think I need to. I don't think I need to. Like again,
I know. I'm just saying that like all I was saying with that was just that intuition seems very like unfounded, non-justified. So I didn't see the point of using intuition.
I didn't say anything otherwise.
I know. So that's what I'm saying.
I'm not positing my intuition as a justification.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not at all. I'm not saying that it's increased or decreased the probability of a proposition being true.
I've never seen someone avoid to make an argument so much. All right.
I mean, look, if you give me meta again, I'm gonna get less interested in the conversation.
No, it's just all I'm asking is like, it's the only reason why is because like I think we should always when we.
Well, now it's not the only reason why. Now that I did a quick Google, like, well, it's not the only reason why. I had some priors, right? They were weakly founded because. I had I think that there are certain things that I may not have an empirical study for, but I think that there's enough background knowledge or enough common domain knowledge to know that certain things, like for example, if someone jumps out of a plane without a parachute, I may not have a study on that, but there are certain, but I have a very strong intuition, and if I thought about it, I could probably model out with a lot of physics and whatnot.
Okay.
I think that there's enough common domain. I had the priors that there was enough common domain knowledge, and now that I did a quick Google search, it seems like. Okay. Yeah, but I have to. But I will grant that in order to be able to strongly defend that empirical statement,
I'm so confused that I would have to what you're trying to get across right now.
I'm sorry. What?
All I was saying is that I didn't see much of a point to use like your intuitions. That's all I was saying. I didn't.
Yeah, I was just relaying what. No, I was just relaying why I was just relaying why I have my priors. I wasn't trying to justify it. Again, okay, but regardless, okay. So without getting bogged down on this, because I don't think everything in the conversation turns on this. So yeah, go ahead.
So what I'm proposing here is that even when I view like probability and shit like that, all I'm saying is that like if we acknowledge that like heaps of actions that we do could result in the like problems or the hurts or the pain on millions of people, on sentient life in general. Every time I step, I could kill an ant. That doesn't. Like, I don't see like the proposition that like every time that I do something, knowing that there's like a probability that someone could get hurt, I should therefore be like bound to it because like,
I don't see how anything I gave you disagrees with that.
It's your number 4. Like
I said non-negligible. Yeah, number 4 says non-negligible probability.
You agree that every time you take a step on the concrete, you'd possibly kill an ant, correct?
I'm not aware of what the probability is, but sure, I agree there's a probability.
Yeah. Okay. So then, like, does that mean you're not going to like? Does that mean you're not going to like step on the concrete anymore, or you're going to avoid running into a house?
Why would I avoid doing that?
Well, because you could. There's a probable chance that you could just kill a sentient life every time you do that.
So?
Don't you? But you value sentient life, don't you?
I do value sentient life. Okay. What does that get? How does that get me to the conclusion that I avoid? How does that get me to the conclusion that I avoid stepping on the concrete?
No. I'm in agreement here. I'm going to step on the concrete anyway.
No, I just don't see the connection. Like again, like because it seems like you haven't like you're not dealing with what my actual view is and trying to say my view leads to something that it doesn't. And it seems like it's because you haven't. It seems like there's a misunderstanding of what my view is.
All I'm saying is that if we can come to this conclusion that you're going to do things that could risk harm to sentient life, then I think I should be more than welcome, or a woman should be more than welcome to, with her consent, like take away consent from the life and do whatever she wants too.
What? How does that follow? Are you saying that follows from my view?
It does. If you think you can step on the concrete knowing there's a probable chance you'll kill something.
What? Why?
Why? Because they're both probable. Yet you're going to do it.
Wait, my view is not that if anything is probable, you should have. If something is probable, you ought to avoid do it. or something has some probability to it assigned to it, you should avoid doing it. That's not my view. That's
Then
not
I
entailed
think
on my
you
view.
just like, I think you just like take away and then
What's
give,
the entailment?
what I'm entailing here is that I just think it just seems
Right,
like
do you know what an overdetermination is?
it's to overdetermine something past what's needed, needed determinability. Oh, that's not even a word.
Okay, so you know that the number 4 criteria is posed as an overdetermination, not a sufficient criteria, right?
Oh, so you can take it out.
Maybe.
We'll
But the
just-
point, I don't know. Maybe in some cases you may not, or may not. But the point here is that it's not sufficient. It's, well, I don't know if you could. I said it's not a. Sorry. It's not a. I have to think if it's necessary or sufficient. It's not a sufficient criteria. You might be able to, if you take it out, it might be a necessary criteria, but it's not a sufficient criteria.
Well, like I think
because again, like what I was positing these 6 things as an overdetermination for a sufficiency criteria.
Okay, so then what I'm asking you here very simply is that if you're willing to if you're willing to do actions. Now, also, while I'm attacking the 4th, I'm also attacking your position in general. If you're willing to do actions, knowing that's probable that you may just kill a sentient life, then how can you...
That it has some assigned probability.
Yeah, then how can you, like, engage, like, the inherent defense of sentience as a whole? Like,
well, there's a number of ways of doing that. One way is that you can value sentience as a whole, but still have other values that conflict with it. And then you assign certain probabilities to them, and so you can reach certain negligible conclusions. Another way is that you can have the view of agnosticism in virtue of predatory behavior for these insects, by which the vast majority of insects do have some omnivorous characteristics to them. So they do have predatory behavior.
Okay.
And so so actually, on my view, I actually don't care about stepping on insects in general as a result of that.
Then why do you care about killing sentient fetuses?
Well, they're not because they're not they don't have that same criteria.
So then can I ask?
So number one is that they don't share the same probability. At least I don't know that they share the same probability.
Yeah, keep on.
Yeah, it is. At least doesn't seem like they do. Number 2, it doesn't seem like the fetus is going to start going around eating other beings alive.
Then can I ask you a quick question? Can you
sure.
Can you name the trait that differentiates an ant and a fetus? A sentient fetus?
I just did. I just named 2 of them.
Oh, well,
but there's a number. Yeah, there's a number. So number 1. I'll name a number of them. So number 1, predatory behavior.
Well, you define predatory behavior, if you don't mind me asking.
Eating other beings alive.
So if a pregnant mother swallows a live spider and then that goes into the eating of a baby or the
eating, so I can say no, that's not even like so. Okay, eating other highly sentient beings alive.
A spider's not highly sentient?
No, we don't know that. Actually, we don't know if a spider's sentient at all.
So you think? Wait, quick question. So I can even vegans can eat spiders?
I don't know.
Vegans, you go ahead eat those.
Okay, because again, I don't know. We don't know if insects are sentient.
Okay. So then my question to you would then be, if we have this fetus, we don't know. So to what level is a fetus sentient? Since we're getting to levels of sentience.
So we don't know we don't know exactly to what level it is, but it's rough. But I think we have some reason to believe it's at the level of certain mammal animals, like similar to certain rabbits or certain marmot. So certain other animals and certain other that we could compare it to.
So what if a fetus intakes some germs? I think there are some germs that are probably sentient. Germs able to make decisions and make choices and things like that.
Sorry, what? Germs?
Germs. There are germs out there that can make decisions and things like that.
Wait, germs that are sentient?
Yeah. Well, the germs can make decisions. Germs can like.
Wait, when you say a germ, what do you mean a germ?
I'll get a definition. Make sure I keep it as accurate as possible.
Wait, no, just mean like a bacteria or a fungus or a.
Either probably. I have to get a specification.
Oh, I'm not convinced that those are the germs are sent. Like, I'm not convinced that bacteria are sentient.
You're not convinced that bacteria is sentient. What's
No.
lacking? What do you define sentience?
I define sentience is having any conscious experience.
The ability. Wouldn't you consider the ability to make choices or to choose be like a conscious experience?
I don't think that's a sufficient. No, I think computers can make choices too, but I don't think computers are sentient.
What do you define as conscious?
Well, I just told you what having any being like something to be that thing, or having any experience at all.
I think a computer can logically have experience.
I understand that it's logically possible for a computer to have experience, but I don't think I'm not convinced that it does.
Would you agree if it's possible you'd agree that there are some computers out there that are able to have experience?
Would I agree if it's possible that there are? No, I don't think that follows.
What do you define as experience?
If it's like anything to be that thing.
Yeah, can you be a little more specific than that?
That's the same way. This is the way a number of philosophers define it.
Can you if it's whole like specification? That's like very vague.
I'm sorry, what?
Very vague. Can you give something more like specific?
You don't know what that means? So, for example, if I ask you, all right, I'm gonna
mute. No. Jesus.
Yeah. So if I ask you, is it like something to be a bat, right? To use Nozick's example. Then the answer is just going to be yes. It would be like something.
So it just has to be something else.
But if I ask you if it would be like something to be a rock, right? Unless you're a panpsychist, you're going to say no. Or something.
So it just has to be like something else. Is that what you're saying?
To be sentient, yeah, there has to. There's some kind of
So I'm going to ask you this one more time. So just so it be clear, it has to be like something else.
It has to be like something to be that thing.
Like something to be that thing. Okay.
Yeah.
A computer's like a computer.
So if someone asked me, do you think it would be like something to be a computer? I'm going to say no. For the current computers that we have in technology.
Why not?
I don't, because I don't believe that they're sentient.
Wait. It seems like awfully like we're running into a circle. I
don't believe that it's like something to be that thing.
So you're saying to prove something to be sentient, there has to be something else to be sentient.
Wait, what? No.
Like if you're like using the whole thing, it has to be like.
I don't think you're understanding what I'm saying.
But I know that's why.
I think you're really quick on the trigger there, but I don't think you're. I think like just take a step, get into clarity mode before you go into attack mode for a second.
I'm just it's really vague. That's what I'm trying to get across.
I know. I understand. I understand. Okay. So there's a lot of. So look, I don't have the time to go over like how like sentience is cashed out many times in the literature. I can refer you to various parts of the literature. I take it to be that like parties to the debate have like already familiarized themselves with how sentience is defined in philosophy. If you haven't, that's fine. I can take some extra time.
Let's get into a base term here. What if you were to ask someone who has no knowledge of philosophy what sentience is? What would you say?
Yeah. So I would say, look, do you know what it's like to have experience? Like, clearly you do. You're hearing my voice.
Yeah.
You're seeing some things. You are having thoughts, right? Any of those things qualify as some type of experience. To have any thought at all, to have any. So, and it's not to have, and you have this experience. You have some qualia. You have some, you have inputs, and not just inputs, but you experience these inputs.
So then, why doesn't a computer have this?
We don't know. I didn't say it doesn't have this. I just said I don't believe it does. We don't know if it. Look, it's possible that it can have them. I just don't have an epistemic. So I just don't come to the epistemic conclusion that it does, because I have certain epistemic criteria between panpsychism and solipsism to separate those two.
So like if I use a calculator on a computer and if I enter in a question, like I enter what's 17 plus 88, they'd be able to give me a response. There's a level where they can respond to us. You'd agree with this, correct?
I agree with that.
And then they can also like keep memory, so they can also like keep a level of memory and keep things that they went through within their like system. So like if I search something, they'll keep that within them. That's possible too. So then
I agree.
So what is it? What in experience is it missing?
I'm not claiming it is or isn't. I just don't think it. I don't think it is because I don't think that memory processing, and I don't think that type of processing or memory is a sufficiency criteria to believe that a being is sentient.
I know. So can you give me like, so we've gotten its ability to have memory, its ability to interact and respond with its own answers. It has all these things.
Yeah.
So then what's it missing? Like apart from that.
Well, I don't know I don't know, nor do I need to know what it's missing to generate sentience in order to have the view that those things are not required to conclude sentience.
I don't know how you can I don't see how you can. It seems awfully weird that you saying that I don't have an answer, but I can still reject this. It just sounds like you just
I'm not going to be able to have a Nobel Prize. I'm not here to solve solipsism or solve panpsychism, solve the answers to these questions, nor do I need to in order to have an epistemic view. Now, which you can ask me and you haven't asked me about yet. In order to have an epistemic view that separates that, or it has some way of separating my doxastic state of what is sentient and what is not. I don't see why I would need to have
then that. I don't see I believe you should have some I believe at this point your rejection on whether or not a computer has sentience.
Hello?
Have I cut out? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Sorry. I don't see it just seems like your only reasoning as to why a computer sentient. Actually, I don't think you have reason. I think it's just arbitrary why you don't think a computer sentient. Because it's seeming like
it's not arbitrary. You're asking principled questions about how I define sentience, and then when it comes to the epistemic question, you're just not asking me what my epistemic standards are, and you're just coming to it's like it just okay. I'll throw you a bone. My epistemic standards are like, okay, look, I know I don't have a solution to panpsychism or solipsism. I have a very strong belief that I am sentient, and so I have a very strong belief that it's coming from my brain through various experiments that I can read about, and so I have certain priors that other beings with a brain are sentient. Other beings with a brain that has non-reflex arc activity could very well be sentient. So there's at least it's much more likely. And now, is it possible that beings without a brain are sentient? Yeah, it's possible that things with a brain are not sentient. No, but there are certain things that increase the likelihood. So one of those things is having similar structures and physiology of the neurology that I already know can generate sentience, or I already have strong belief that can generate sentience. So for example, my brain. So I have a higher belief that other humans are sentient. I have a higher belief that gyroencephalic mammals are sentient. I have a higher belief that beings with brains with analogous structures to cortices are sentient. And I have a higher belief that beings with brains are sentient than beings without brains are sentient. It's a probabilistic thing for me. And so
it's a probabilistic. Well, what I'm saying is that you'd agree that sentient beings tend to have memories, correct?
I think that's a property of sentient and non-sentient beings, but not all sentient beings. Some sentient beings don't have memories.
So what non-sentient being has a memory?
I think that certain calculators or computers can have memory without being sentient. I think a piece of paper, technically, you could put memory on a piece of paper.
So then the question is, what has the ability to keep memory and a responding ability to subjectively, well, not subjectively, the ability to respond that doesn't have sentience? What does?
I think there are primitive computers that
I don't see the
I mean, look, there are even like the original. I don't know if you the original like mechanical moving part computers like that have certain inputs and outputs. I think they have memory, but I'm not convinced that they're sentient.
Well,
like I just don't see why. I just don't see. Now, if you're contesting that, I might not have an argument. I could just say like this is not a belief I share.
Okay, well that's the whole thing though. Like, I don't see the point in like if our whole contention right here is if a computer has sentience, and your only response to something that doesn't have sentience but has these things is a computer, then it seems like you can't answer the question properly. That's all it seems like.
Well, look. I've already granted that I don't have the solution to panpsychism or solipsism. What I can do is I can present an epistemic differentiating some certain epistemic principles that can increase or decrease the probability. But if you're asking me to solve problems that philosophers have worked on for thousands of years and still can't solve, then no, I'm not going to be able to do that in this conversation. But I don't need to.
So what principle would that be?
Well, I already gave you one. So one that I gave is that having a brain with non-reflex arc activity increases the probability of a being sent. That's one principle I gave you.
So then they need a brain?
I didn't say they need a brain.
Sorry.
Okay, like if we do okay, sorry, look. My patience is running a little bit short now.
Sorry.
If I tell you this and because look, I don't, my patience is running I'm trying not to waste my time.
Okay.
So if I tell you that here's a principle to increase the probability, and you say they need a brain, that's clearly not what I said.
I know. Sorry, I jumped the gun there. I misheard you. I just occurred to me what you actually said.
Okay. Yeah. So one principle that I gave is that if a being has a brain with non-reflex arc neural activity, there's an increased probability for that being to be sentient. That's something you would update your priors. So if you have assigned a certain Bayesian, like in a Bayesian probability model, if you assigned a certain prior to that being sentient, and then you have new information about this being that you didn't have before, that this being has a brain with non-reflex arc activity, neural activity, I would update my priors and have an increased credence that this being is more likely to be sentient. So that's one principle I gave.
Okay. So this will probably just be something that we're going to disagree on whether or not like a computer is sentient. Then I think that's just something we're going to agree to. At this point, we're just like just having different things to use at that point. So if we go on from that like point here, and that we like go on from here. So what's your circumstance? What's your things to like? Where do you differentiate what times sentience is a value, not a value?
I don't. What do you mean differentiate what time sentience is or is not?
If you're going to commit actions with the knowledge that you could be killing a sentient being, then like when do we?
Yeah.
Then when do we like?
Oh, sure. Yeah. No, I think that there are certain beings that have sentience that are not just agnostic about it, but they're so low. If there is sentient, we have priors that it would just be like so minuscule of an amount of sentience and such a low probability that it would be that I don't extend that much moral concern for it. And the disanalogousness from for a fetus for that is just that when we look at the EEG brainwaves, they're similar. There are similarities to the EEG brainwaves to beings that we already consider sentient and have a non-negligible amount of sentience. Okay. Like certain rabbits, marmots, or certain preterm delivered babies.
Okay. Well, that just seems like if we like differentiating like values to different levels of sentience to the point where you can where you'd be fine with harming one but not the other and things like that. And
I didn't say I'd be fine. Well, I didn't say I'd be fine. I said there would just be a vast chasm of a difference in how much I would not prefer it. So, for example, if there was like a herbivorous insect that wouldn't like eat other highly sentient beings alive, like I might, if I knew that the insect was there, I probably would move my foot a little bit to not step on it. But if I did step on it, I wouldn't like view it as if I did something like, horrible. Like I would, it's like it wouldn't be it would be a much lower degree.
Okay.
But if it was like a rabbit, right? Like if it was this rabbit that I just decided to stomp on this rabbit's head, that's going to bother me a lot more.
I think that more comes down to a perception thing.
Okay, well, that's a whole different conversation. I'm just giving you my view.
Well, like
my view is that there's a different degree in the wrongness of these different things based on and it correlates very well with the difference in what I think the sentience is.
So then you value a rabbit more than
an ant?
Yeah.
Yes.
And therefore, would you?
Yeah, yeah, I do.
So then, by that logic, can't I just say that I value a full adult woman over a fetus? That would be just as analogous.
Well, I do. And if I had to choose between saving a full adult woman versus saving a fetus, I would probably save the full adult woman. But the issue here is that in this case, there's something else injected into this situation, which is the responsibility condition.
I think, but then I'd just say that, like, I think a woman has every right to, like, defend herself and her body in that instance, and especially if she's.
Well, again, the issue here is that the dependency on the body is in virtue of is justified in a responsibility on my view. So, for example, like, let me just ask you this question: like, if you were to get into a car accident, so if someone were to run you over with a car, right? They were negligent, they were drunk driving, and the instantiation is already obtained, right? So basically you're already hooked up. Would you be okay with them chopping you up if that's the only way to remove you?
Yeah, that's
the only pragmatic way to remove you.
That's the only pragmatic way. It's the only, right, so it's the only like logical way that they can remove themselves. Great.
Not logical. I said pragmatic way to remove.
I don't understand what the word pragmatic is. Sorry.
Okay, so
not within my vocabulary.
Sure, no problem. So if the only way the doctor was willing to perform the procedure was to chop the other being up, right? Would you be okay with hiring the services of this doctor to chop the being up?
For them
to chop you up, sorry.
If they're imposing themselves onto you and they're forcing you to do this, like, if it's being forced upon you, then yes, I think you have every means to get away from it.
So wait. So this person put you in the situation. So this person, out of negligence, put you in a situation where they're hooked up to you.
Well,
you disagree with that?
No. I'm just going to present something so you can better understand what I mean by that. All right, let's just.
Wait, I just want clarity on what the answer is.
Okay, go ahead, Avi. Sorry.
So, this person this person caused you to be in a situation. This person caused you out of their own negligence to be in a situation where you're dependent on them, right? It's not that you forced this person in a situation where you're dependent on them. This person did it. Now, the only way the doctor is willing to remove the connection is if they chop you up. Are you okay with? Would you say that in that situation it would be okay for the doctor to chop you up?
Well, look, I'm going to compare this to a way. All right, let's just say a man and a woman's initiated sex.
Can you just answer this question? Listen, I
already answered it for you, Avi. You heard my answer.
Well, could you clarify? I just wanted. Answer it again then, because I wanted to make it clear that in the situation. I want to make it clear in this situation that what's being forced, the initial forcing, is by this person on you. This person forced you to be in a situation where you're dependent on them.
If they no longer consent to it, yes. Now, can I explain why?
Okay, cool.
Can I explain why now?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Okay, so let's just say a woman initiates sex with me, and she's initiated the sex, and we're in the middle of having sex, and she no longer wants to have sex anymore. She retracts consent, but you're already mid-situation, and I choose to keep going because we are already mid-situation. It's a like predatorial instinct for me to keep going and shit like that. And it's part of like my primordial self. I think she's more than welcome whether it means to kill me, stab me, cut my head off, she's more than willing to do anything by any means, even if she's started the situation to get away from me. So I think it's fine.
I agree. Look, I agree, and I agree with that. Because again, my conditions for having a responsibility objection obtaining doesn't involve wouldn't qualify under that situation. So I would have the same view as you in that situation.
Well, in that analogy that you proposed with the whole like drunk driver stuff, is there any non-parallels there?
Well, there may be some non-parallels, but I'm not, but not ones that, I mean, I don't know. In terms of the morally salient ones, I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, if they are, I mean, maybe. But regardless, I just don't see how I would give a different answer in the sex case.
Well, here's the thing. I think that by that logic, if there is if you don't propose any, I think that they are perfectly analogous to one another. Therefore, my response is perfectly backed with perfect reasoning.
No. I don't think it. Well, when you say that, if by perfect reasoning you just mean that you have a consistent view.
Consistent.
Look, I've already granted from the outset that you have had a consistent view.
Okay.
But I don't think that either of our views follow from certain axioms of logic itself. I think there are certain values that we have different views. I just would think we have different values. But regardless, so again, if someone so my response ultimately is if you're in a situation like that and you force someone to be dependent on you, so, and these criteria obtained, so you were negligent, you forced somebody to be dependent on you, you knew there was non-negligible probability that would happen, and the burden is comparable to the magnitude of the pregnancy. Let me finish.
Okay.
And the voluntary action is not interrupted by non-voluntary forced action, interposed between the action and the dependency state. If those things obtain, then I would just find it very abhorrent and insane, quite frankly, to me, to say that, because of a withdrawal of consent, that you're okay chopping someone up.
Well, insane.
Those criteria.
Insane's a very relative term. By that same logic, I could say.
I said to me.
I know.
I'm granting it's relative. That's why I said to me.
Okay. So what I'm saying is that then, realistically, I could just say it's insane that you value responsibility.
Yeah, you can. No, you can. You can.
Well, then what's the point of saying?
You can. Right. That's why I was saying we have different values, and we both view each other's values as abhorrent.
Then can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Within my value system, do you think there's anything inconsistent within my value system for me to?
I didn't say there. I didn't say there was.
I didn't
something
say you did. I'm just asking you. I didn't say you did. I'm just asking you.
Not to my knowledge. Not to my knowledge. I don't think there's anything inconsistent about it. My problem with it isn't an inconsistency.
And what is it?
It's a difference in values.
And I guess
you have values that I find abhorrent.
Then I guess we just reached an impasse because we.
Yes, that is the impasse, and that's why I try to. This is why, as a heuristic, I try to avoid having conversations with people who don't have a problem killing babies, because I know that, because every time I do this, it's the difference is